This is question 18 on problem solving from section 1 of the 2019 ECAA. So we're given the net of a hexagonal prism with various letters and numbers written on the sides, and we're asked which one of these 5 nets will form an identical prism. So what's going on here? Well, a quick inspection shows that there's always going to be a T and B on the top and bottom, and there's always going to be the numbers 1 to 6 on the sides. So what do we think is going to be different about these 5 prisms? So let's just have a quick browse through what our options are and see if we can spot any differences. For example, between these first two, what looks different? Well, here, the numbers all appear to be upside down, but side by side. But here, there seems to be a column of numbers, one underneath the other. So when this is folded, this is clearly going to look different to this, but what's going on in the actual prism that we start with? We can see that the numbers are adjacent to each other, and in addition, the top of each of the numbers will be on the same face as the T. And so when this is folded, just one section will look like this. The tops of each of the numbers points towards the T face. So let's look at our options. We already noted that these numbers are stacked rather than adjacent to each other. So this is going to be wrong. And if we look at the T face, we can see that the bottom of this one, in addition, is aligned with the T face rather than the top. We know that's wrong. And with the B face, the numbers are aligned side by side. So these relationships we've shown do not match up the relationships in here, where the bottom of the number points at the B, the top of the number points at the T. So if it's not this one, let's look at our next option. Do these relationships that we pointed out match those in the original? So we can see that the top of this 5 is pointing towards this T face, and the bottom of this 4 points towards the B. So based on just this one observation, there's nothing obviously wrong with this shape. So let's move on, keeping this idea in mind. What's going on here? Again, we can see the top of the numbers are pointing towards the T face. So this is an obviously wrong. Next, what about here? So the tops of the numbers here appear to be pointing towards the B. So we can see that this part of the shape does not match here. Although on this top side, the bottom of the numbers are lined up with B like we need, but this one mistake means that this can't be correct. And finally, what about the numbers here? So we can see that the sides are all lined up with the faces rather than the top and bottom of the numbers. That's the case here and all around this B. So we can say that this is wrong based on this one observation that we've made. Now, what about between these two? So our first observation we can't really apply because none of them look wrong in that regard. So let's find just another random observation that we can find that will differentiate both of these. It doesn't matter if you use this in the first place or if you found something else that differentiates them. It's just finding one key distinction between the options. So what's different? Well, if you looked at the numbers last time, let's move our focus to the letters. In here, say the point of this T is going through an edge. This may or may not be the case in the others. Let's look at this one. It happens that the point of the T here is going through a corner. And it doesn't matter how you fold it, this T is never going to point through an edge like this one. And so we know these two nets have to be different. What's the actual case in our first prism? We can see that this T is pointing through a corner. So we can say that this one has to be wrong and this one correct. And we've done that without having to construct the entire prism, which would have taken longer. It's not easy to visualize, especially how some of these more complex ones will fold up. So we've done this in a completely 2D manner, which makes it easier to see. And our final answer is therefore C.